So I was watching this really interesting podcast from Logan Paul, and what he was talking about in that podcast was some of his conceptions about religion. And I found it intriguing, so I wanted to respond to it. The first thing he says, which I found really intriguing, is how he defines what he believes in. So he says,
I think there's some sort of unimaginable thing that made us in this universe and everything around us.
and that for me is a great definition of God. So that takes him firmly out of atheism and agnosticism and into at least deism or theism, which is the idea of believing in God, which is actually the position of at least 90% of the American population, according to Pew Research. Now, the questions that he had, which he was confused about, was questions relating to the problem of evil, the fact that, in his words,
religion, faith, whatever you want to call it, has led to the deaths of too many people, has led to the trauma of too many children.
And I agree with Logan Paul on that point. Religion has actually led to all of those things. But just because religion has led to those things, or the practitioners of particular religions have done those things, it doesn't mean that said religions preach those things. So there's a differentiation here. We have to differentiate between what religious people do in the name of religion and what religions actually say. And if you want to know what religions actually say, you have to read and see. As for us as Muslims, it's very clear. Though we have bad press and there's lots of things being said about us, the Quran makes it very clear that someone who kills one person is like killing all of humanity. And the Prophet Muhammad told us that من قتل معاهدا لم يرح رائحة الجنة. Whoever kills a non-combatant, non-believer will not smell the fragrance of heaven. Including women and children, which in another hadith he says. So despite the fact that many religious practitioners act in monstrous ways, it doesn't necessitate that those religions themselves preach monstrous things. And I think that's an important, crucial differentiation.
I'm not sure I can fully wrap my head around so many people telling me different things about their God.
Another thing he said was that there's so many different gods, and how do we know which one is the right one? Well, the one you defined is the right one. You see, this is very important. You know, you have already intuited, through intuition, inherently, as you put it in another place in your podcast. You have an inherent idea of what God is, the higher power, which is unimaginable, that created us in the universe. You put it perfectly. I couldn't have said it any better way. The creator God that we believe in. Now, this is backed by evidence. There's many people. There was a 2011 study that shows that children that are born with this belief in a higher power. Now, this is in 2011 by Justin Barrett in the Oxford Anthropological Society, that people are born with this belief. You have that belief. You've expressed that belief. The question is, do we believe that that higher power is a man? Is it conceivable that without socialization that we believe that Jesus is God for the sake of argument? That's the Christian narrative, that Jesus is God. Could you imagine a child being born believing there's a person called Jesus Christ, and not only that there's a person called Jesus Christ, that he's God, but not only that he's God, but he's part of a Trinity, that the Father is God, the Son is God, and the Holy Spirit is God, and all three are God. All three persons are one person, and all three persons are one, and that is God. Is that something you think without socialization that people would come about with? I don't think so. The idea is what you said. The definition of God is the unimaginable, to put it in your thing, that created us in the universe, which is not a man, because it can't be a man, because a man is created. It can't be a woman. It can't be a child. It can't be it can't be something which dies, because God can't die. God can't rest. You see the idea. The question now of different gods, which God to choose from? It's the God you already know exists. The one that you have mentioned, the one who's unimaginable thing that created us in the universe. That's the right one. Now, the first thing to do, because you've said that there's so many different notions of God, how do you know which is the right one? Anything which doesn't fit that paradigm, which is your paradigm, cannot be God. This is your definition. Anything that doesn't fit this cannot be God. So a man can't be God because we can imagine a man. A woman can't be God because we can imagine a woman. An animal can't be God. The universe,
which are the people who believe good stuff. They talk to the universe.
That's what I do.
Which we're going to come to, can't be God because we can imagine the universe, and the universe was itself a created thing. We're going to come to this.
I think the universally accepted definition of good is like, right and wrong. You know when something's right and something's
Morality,
wrong.
general morality.
Well,
Yeah.
morality.
So you say, which is really interesting because you have a moral position. This is very fine moral position. You say you know what's right and wrong, and you can know what's right and wrong. But once again, how do you know? You're going to say it's kind of like intuitive, in the same way that you know there's an unimaginable power. But then once again, I want you to know that that's against materialist, nihilist, and atheistic discourse. Like for an atheist, there's no way of proving what's right and wrong. You have to understand this point. For someone who does not believe in a higher power that endows human beings with morality, the question would be, how would they go about finding out what's right and wrong? Yeah, it would be what society comes together and decides, which one society can decide one thing, another society will decide another thing. And historically, we've seen differences in the way people think of right and wrong. So how do we know right and wrong exists in the first place? So we'd have to say that the thing that endows us with this belief in right and wrong is that higher power, the unimaginable creator that created us in the universe. Okay, so there's right and wrong, which is morality, but then there's also this higher power. So that the right and wrong comes from the higher power. That would be something which follows, right? So I want you to think about that.
Having sex before marriage isn't, in my opinion, wrong. But according to religion, it is.
You said having sex before marriage, in your opinion, is not wrong. But the problem with this postulation here, Brother Logan, the problem with this postulation is the fact that, how do you know? That's my question. How do you know that that wasn't a socialized belief system you have? Because in philosophy, or even in psychology, they have nature versus nurture, right? You're either born believing in something, like you say you believe in a higher power, intuitively, yeah? Or even morality is intuitive for you, or you're socialized into that belief system. So how do you know that your belief that marriage or having sex before marriage is not something which is, in fact, socialized as a product, as a social construct of the 21st century in the Western world? It becomes very difficult to discern what comes from society and what comes from the self, which is why there's a need for a higher prescriptive authority, which we call God, to give us the exact guidelines on how to live life. You see? And that higher prescriptive authority, which is called God, the unimaginable thing that created us in the universe, to use your term, must send that those prescriptions through means which we can access. You see? So our narrative, Logan, as Muslims, is that we're born believing in God, just like you do. This is called the fitrah. The fitrah is an innate predisposition to believing one God, the creator God, the powerful God, the one that's all powerful, the one that's not a man, is not a woman, is not Jesus, is not, God doesn't die on the cross, he doesn't rest on the seventh day. God is not all of those things. For the Muslim, God is the unimaginable creator that created us and the universe. The unimaginable thing that created us and the universe. Your definition of God is the Muslim definition of God. The Christian definition of God is that God is the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And all three are God. This is not the Muslim definition. That's how you demarcate between religions here. So, God, who is this all-powerful agency, yeah, has endowed us with an ability to know what's right and wrong, yes, but also the guidance, yeah, which is, in the case of the old prophets, Abraham, Moses, Jesus, was their books that they were sent to their people. And we believe that Prophet Muhammad was the final messenger which was sent to all human beings. Okay, so bear in mind, that's the narrative of Islam.
This is where I get confused. Like who's right and who's wrong? Are Muslims wrong because they're Muslim? Are Christians wrong because they're Christian?
At 8:40, you asked a very good and inquisitive and powerful question. How do we know what's right and wrong? My answer to you is this. Listen, Logan. Listen to me, Logan, yeah? My answer to you is this. You know what's right and wrong by using all the tools at your disposal. And what are your tools that you know what's right and wrong with? Number one, intuition. It's a very powerful thing. How do you know you exist? I think, therefore I am. Yeah? But you can even go further. You know you are because you know you are. It's self-evident, right? So the same intuition that you used to gauge that there was a higher authority, yeah, is the same intuition you can use to determine what the higher authority isn't. Like imaginable. It's not a man. You know it already, okay? So intuition is one of those tools. Another tool is logic or rationality. So God can God be, if God is all powerful and is the all creator being, can God be in time, in the sense that he was created? No, God cannot be created, because that would mean that he has a beginning. Can God have a beginning? No. You see, can God die? As the Christians say that God died on the cross, we would say that goes against rationality and logic. Can God have a mum? How could God have a mum? You see, when God is meant to be the unimaginable creator of all things, me and you, right? According to your definition. So we know we can use intuition, we can use rationality and logic to demonstrate what God is and what God is not. Yeah. So that's to answer your second question. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach something on the comment section, description box of this video, which will give you a secondary question, which is, how do we know that the Prophet Muhammad, who we say as Muslims, is in fact a true prophet? So we will say, use the same tools, use your logic and rationality. I've written a very small piece, maybe it will take you 10 minutes to read, maybe even less, yeah, on the evidences that Prophet Muhammad, who's the final prophet we believe is for all human beings, has come with. So please read that in your spare time. It will increase your cultural capital, yeah, it will increase your intelligence, and it will make you a more cultured person that can discern between different theologies and religions. So if you have time, please take your time to read that. And then after that, obviously, you can read the Quran as well, which is the holy book of the Muslims. You see, at 9 minutes and 5 seconds, you say something really powerful. You're saying you talk to the universe. But I would say to you, look, you're talking to the universe. What you're really saying, and because you said in another place that you wish certain things to the universe, which basically what you're describing is something called supplication, which is really a kind of prayer, right? When you're praying to the universe and you think that the universe is going to give you something. But the problem is that the universe doesn't have any agency. Okay, the universe does not have agency. It's an inanimate thing. So you have to think about, and this is what the Quran says. You know, Abraham, who we believe is a prophet who came to his people, he said to his people, he said that they were worshipping certain, idols and stuff. He said, "Hal yasma'unakum?" Yeah, إِذْ تَدْعُونَ, can they hear you if you are calling to them? And listen to the question of Abraham in the Quran. Can they hear you if you call to them? أَوْ يَنْفَعُونَكُمْ أَوْ يَضُرُّونَ, or can they benefit you or harm you? Right? So can the universe benefit you or can it harm you? Have you got experience of that? Have you got evidence of that? Can the universe hear you? Right? And what's the evidence of that? It's an inanimate object or an inanimate entity. So in that case, the universe itself is not the thing or the agency which you should direct your supplication. We would say it makes more sense, wouldn't it? You would probably agree with me, hopefully, that you should be directing your veneration and your supplication to the creator of the universe. Yeah? That's what we should, that's the prophetic way of Abraham, Moses, Jesus, and all of the prophets that came, including the final prophet, Prophet Muhammad. And with that, Logan Paul, I invite you to Islam. Yeah? You seem like a very sincere person. I invite you to Islam. I invite you to the religion of Islam. Read the Quran. Read my little clip, my little PDF that I've got for you there. It'll take 10 minutes of your time, and then you can go back to KSI as a Muslim, and then when you fight him for the third time now, I don't know what it will be, then you can have some success in that, hopefully. And wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.